Díomh a cóide agus fáilte rais. Hello friends and welcome back to the Grá Mòr podcast. It's Winter Elaine. I am Elaine Doyle, your host, and it is with deep, heartfelt gratitude that I welcome you back to this sacred space. Yeah, hello friends. How are you getting on? Yeah, I really hope everyone is keeping well during these times, this time of planetary awakening. What a time to be alive. Just before I get stuck in, I'm in a very windy Wexford right now, so apologies if you can hear the wind in the background. I have a beautiful cat on my lap as well, and the fire is lighting, so there might be a lot of different outside noises, but here to be with all of it. So yes, it is currently the 8th of December and we are approaching the Winter Solstice and Christmas. We've just come out of a very intense Samhain period. Here in Ireland, Samhain lasts a month. So on the 1st of December, we welcomed in the solstice energy approaching. And this year it's on the 22nd of December. And the solstice is what this time of year is all about for me. And also, celebrating the Christ consciousness energy that is available to us at this time as well. I mean, really, when we look at the solstice and Christmas, the original reasons for Christmas, it is similar energies. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Before we get stuck in, I could go off ramshiting there now. Ardús, firstly, I am inviting us into our heart space. So just taking a deep breath here, and as though you are taking an elevator from your head down into your heart. Idokri in your heart, Anish. Or an talav nefa sho. In your heart on this sacred land, during this sacred time on planet Earth. And just allowing yourself to be present and to receive for our time together here. So yes, just remaining in that still place. It's really important for us to come deep into our hearts and our bodies during this time, because there's so much going on in the world, and it's really important that we find peace within our hearts. So as I sit down to record, there's just so many things that I could talk about and I want to talk about. But what's present is I want to talk about chronic fatigue and burnout. So that's what today's episode is going to be about. And firstly, I just want to tune into the energies briefly at this time of year. As you know, I live by the wheel of the year, the Celtic wheel of the year. It's more ancient than the Celts, but we'll just stick with that. Since the time itself, the wheel of the year has been present, and I'm currently reading really good book, Anna, the grandmother of Jesus. I don't know how I'm only reading it now, but even, reading the book of her life, she talks about living in close proximity with the seasons and the cycles. So throughout every, ancient, spiritual, indigenous tribes of people, they have lived close to the earth and the seasons. So the solstice and Christmas, as I said, they're very similar energy. So when we look at the solstice, it's the return of the sun. So the sun stands still, solstice stop, and then the days start to get longer from the 22nd on. This year the alignment is actually on the 22nd. And obviously we have Newgrange, Brúna Báine in Ireland. That is one of our most sacred temples that is aligned to the sunrise on the winter solstice. We also have Knockrow in South Kilkenny, which is aligned, it's actually older than Newgrange, and it is aligned to the winter sunrise and the sunset. And that's where I went last year, and I'll be going this year because it's a really, really powerful place and less busy and chaotic than Newgrange on the winter solstice. So it's the return of the sun. And we have Christ, the Son of God, is said to be born at this time. So we can see it's the same energy, the Son of God, returning at this time. And in our mythology, Irish mythology, our version of Jesus is Angus Og, who was conceived and born on the winter solstice by Boann, and his father was Dagda. And it was said that the Dagda stopped time for 9 months so that he was born and conceived on the same day. And throughout many indigenous cultures, they have the story of the Son of God, the Son of Light, been born on the winter solstice. And we can see how, the greatest story of all time, which is, one of the greatest stories of Jesus, is really another myth story that coincides or is similar to a lot of other ancient mythology stories, including our own. So the return of light is like the return of hope. So I'm feeling that kind of hope and that time to celebrate at this time of year, all the healing that we've done and the dense darkness that we've gone into during Samhain and winter. And, the light is bringing back that hope of new life and of our rebirth in the spring. So I do really love this time of year, but not for the reasons that maybe a lot of people like it. I mean, absolutely refuse to now take part in what a lot of mainstream society is doing at this time. Busyness, shopping, drinking, parties, it's so counterintuitive to what we're actually meant to be doing at this time of year. Yes, the light is returning, but it's still very dark. It's still winter. It's still a time of rest, of slowness. And my partner was asking me, he was like, what's your favourite thing about Christmas? And I was like, oh, here, look, since my awakening, Christmas is a whole other ball game than it used to be. I think when you're drinking and you're out shopping and you're partying, it's just like, it's amazing. But then you wake up and you're like, no, that's not. That's completely not what I want to be doing Not at this time of year, not ever. Drinking and stuff, I mean, and spending money on shite that people don't need. So I refuse to take part in that aspect of Christmas. I've bought my presents online from small Irish companies, mainly. I will maybe venture into town, but I tell you, it's a lot for the nervous system, for me anyways, which I'm going to get into when you're recovering from burnout and you're in the midst of a spiritual awakening. Yeah, I went into Wexford town on Monday to get a few bits, and the energy, I'm nabble now, nabble. You know, so just reminding yourself that it's winter, you're allowed to not take part in any of that stuff. But I wouldn't be like bah humbug or Scrooge either. You know, I actually, and I said it back to my partner, what I do like is coming together with family, because it's so easy to kind of distance ourselves sometimes from our family of birth. But they are the people who called us in and birthed us. So coming together and sharing gifts, like my family, we wouldn't be materialistic at all. But it is a time of year where we all buy for one another. It's not a Chris Kindle kind of thing. Everybody gets presents for everybody. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, because it's surprises. So you really have to think about, how well do I know this person? What would they really love and use? And we really think about it and get things that people will actually utilize and use and love. And I really like that aspect of giving. You know, whatever spare money I have right now is going on other people, and I like that. You know, so much of the time we're really just spending on ourselves. It's nice to actually buy things for other people that you know they're going to love. So I love that aspect of it. And supporting local Irish companies and businesses as well is so important, you know. Yeah, and obviously I'm really into Jesus, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene. I always need to say this when I say it, is not the church's version. Like, the Catholic Church is actually not Jesus' religion. It's a lot of it is distorted teachings of the original teachings of Mary and Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, and the whole Christed family. So I like at this time of year to honour that, and I'm really feeling the Christ consciousness energy since the 1st of December. So this is a portal where we can really tap into that energy. And yeah, a reminder that Christ consciousness is a concept rather than a person. It's the oneness to source. It's our connection to source, love, compassion. There's this short description of what Christ consciousness is, but it isn't a person. You know, Jesus Christ is a title. Well, his second name, Christ, is a title rather than a person. Sometimes when we think of Christ, we think of a man. It's actually available to all men and women. So yes, that this time of year, the Christ consciousness energy, the solstice energy, the return of the light. And the light is the Christ consciousness as well, the light of Christ. So celebrating that at this time of year. And a lot of the Christmas practices. Now, this episode is kind of turning into Christmas/solstice. But anyways, there's time for everything here. And I love the way of the heart. It just goes where it needs to go, which I love. So, when we look at some of the traditions of Christmas, they're actually ancient pagan traditions, like the Christmas tree, the Druids, connection to trees like the pine and the mistletoe and the holly are sacred to the Druids around the time of the solstice. So a lot of the Christmas practices are actually related to solstice celebrations or practices. So I think they're all great. I mean, I wouldn't cut down a tree and put it in my house. But I am going to make a solstice altar with, pieces of pine that I find on the ground, and I will harvest some holly and things like that. And I will enjoy my mum's Christmas tree at home. They do get a Christmas tree from our neighbours, so I'll enjoy that. But all those sparkly lights and all, enable, So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I talked about it on Instagram last year. When I have children, I don't know what way I'm going to do Christmas. I'm really unsure. So there'll be a lot more reflections on that to come. I don't know. Like I do have weird contemplations. But this morning we were house sitting for my partner's brother, and they have kids, and there was toys everywhere, and I was like, do kids really need cut toys? Do they really? Did they have them 100 years ago? So I'm not sure. But I think I'll probably soften up a lot when I have children. And it's not even that I'm not soft, but I just question a lot of things, and a lot of things, the way things are done, especially at Christmas. There's just so much money and waste at this time of year. Anyways, besides all that, there's beautiful energies that we can tune into at this time of year. And as always, a way to honour that is to, go to a sacred site, see if there's anywhere close to you aligned to the solstice, make a trip to Grá Mòr, or even Newgrange opens and you can enter for free 3 days before the solstice, 3 days after. And I went the 23rd last year, and it was amazing. It was empty, and really got to tune in there. And I went to Newgrange on the solstice 2 years ago, and because of COVID it was really quiet, and it was amazing. Like, it was just sparked a lot of remembrance within me. So I would recommend it, but I don't know, on the 21st now it's very, very busy. But it is a powerful thing to do, is to go to somewhere that's aligned on the solstices. And I know there's in Stonehenge in England as well. Lots of different places. So that's 17 minutes of solstice, and creating some ceremony and sacred space for yourself at this time, as I said, like quietness. And it's not really a time to be out socialising a lot, really, I don't think, personally. It's still winter. Seeing our family at Christmas, I think, will be enough, what? What else do I want to say about Christmas? I suppose Christmas can be a time when we get triggered by family members. We're around family maybe that we're not usually around, and I feel like it's really important to have boundaries at this time of year, especially when we're awake and on the path. And there's that quote, you think you're spiritual until you go back and spend a week with your family. And it also, when I think of that, I mean, just because you can't be around your family doesn't mean you aren't spiritual either. Maybe it means you've got boundaries. So I think for me, it's the importance of stepping out, taking a break when you can feel the energy building, knowing before maybe something is going to be said, noticing the trigger in your body and then stepping away, breathing and stepping away. And a lot of the time, you're really better off not reacting or responding in the moment when you're upset. It's just going to lead to more upset. So walking away, and maybe coming back when things have calmed down, saying, I don't like how you spoke to me there, but saying it in the moment, you're going to be met with more, probably, agitation. So yeah, and like, for, you know, knowing actually how long is it good for me to go home for, like, you know, keeping strong boundaries, and making sure you connect with your soul family at Christmas as well, who actually really get you and understand you, you know. Yeah, and set some strong intentions each day, you know, to be loving and unconditionally loving towards my family as well. So there's some reflections on this time of year. Yeah, I mean, as I was someone who would go Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve, you know, and it's actually a really quiet day to go Christmas shopping, but it's like, seeing how more sensitive I am now to the world, it's like I actually can't be going into towns or anything like that at that time of year. You know, so just preparing so those overwhelming situations don't happen. Yeah. So that's the solstice. Anything else I wanted to say on that? Yeah, perhaps I'll record a whole other a meditation for the solstice or something like that for us to tune in a bit deeper. So, as I said, there is many different things present in my heart that I wanted to talk about. But I think the thing that's most present is chronic fatigue and burnout. And there's a few reasons why I wanted to talk about this. Firstly, and the reason why it's evident is I had my priestess training on Wednesday. I don't know if I've said that before. I'm doing my priestess training down in Wexford with Deirdre Wadding, High Priestess of the ancient Indigenous Irish medicine, which is just absolutely amazing. I've been started at Imbolc and will be, fingers crossed, do my ordination at spring equinox next year. And yeah, I was there on Wednesday, and I was, you know, each time we're there we do a sharing around the fire at the start of the day. And as I was reflecting on where I was at energetically, I was reminded that my energy is the way it is because I am recovering from extreme burnout, multiple burnouts, which has led to chronic fatigue. And I don't like to label it as that, because that's labeled as a bad thing or something that you have, and I don't like to label things. But for the sake of like words and putting a title on the podcast, I kind of need to. I need to. And why I wanted to mention that is because when I'm talking in my episodes about, I need to rest, or I'm wrecked and all, it's because I've had multiple burnouts. You know, my energy isn't in full vitality and life force because I'm recovering from burnouts. And I know many people who listen are, and a spiritual awakening is exhausting, which I'll talk about. But I think it's important for me to say that because my reflections or advice are coming from that place of I'm recovering from burnout, so I don't have as much energy as someone who has never experienced burnout, you know. So I need people to understand the filter at which I am looking at the world or giving advice from. Yeah, I think it's really important to say that. And I'm sure I've mentioned it in my first episode, or, many different episodes. I'm sure I've mentioned it, but I really just wanted to dedicate an episode to it. Yeah. Where do I begin with this? Yeah, I really want to share my own story with this, as I always kind of weave in. Anyways, I'm just going to take some tea here. I want to share my story, but I also want to weave in the fact that in my experience, this is something a lot of people experience when they awaken, which is they experience tiredness, let's say, without putting the big chronic fatigue word on it. They experience tiredness. And this is why I feel people who experience a spiritual awakening are wrecked afterwards. So a lot of the time, before we have a spiritual awakening or go deep on the healing path, we are in our wounded masculine. So we have the divine masculine and the divine feminine within us. Every man and woman has these energies. And as a race, for millennia, both men and women have been predominantly in their wounded masculine because of the patriarchal system, the suppression of the divine feminine. And the wounded masculine is like power, doing, success is by how much money you have and how much you do, overachieving, the wounded masculine. So before we awaken, a lot of us are in the wounded masculine. And for some of us, and I don't want to make definite statements here, but for some of us, when we are in the wounded masculine, overdoing, constantly achieving, we are in the flight or fight response. And the flight or fight response is when our nervous system is overstimulated and not in rest and digest. And we're basically running on our adrenals, running off. Yeah, running off our adrenals, like high energy that isn't actually there. You know, when you drink a coffee and you're like buzzing and the coffee goes and you're wrecked, right? So we're living in flight or fight. We're not actually in our bodies, we're in our heads. So we're running on empty. We're actually running on empty. And when we awaken and we actually come to a stop, right? We awaken and we're like, oh my God, there's much more to life than doing all this. There's the divine feminine of resting and being. I am a divine being of the light. How did I not know this all my life? You know, what happens when you have a spiritual awakening? You can be absolutely exhausted because you're coming out with that flight or fight stage and you're coming into your body. So you actually take the elevator from your head down into your heart and your body, and you realise your body's actually fucking wrecked. Wrecked. No, a lot of people and have experienced that. And there's been lots of quotes on Instagram specifically that I've seen around this, which is like, you're wrecked because you've spent decades and lifetimes trying to keep up with a world that is impossible to keep up with. You know, that's why you're wrecked, because you've spent decades or lifetimes going against your body, not listening to your body's need for rest. You know, the divine feminine, which is the energies of resting and being, has completely has been denied in our society. You know, if you take rest, you're lazy, or like, even when you look at kids, they're meant to get up 5 days a week and go to school, like, it's madness. You know, even if they don't want to, we've been told that we need to go against what our body needs, do things we don't like. And it's, for a lot of people, yeah, it leads to disease and fatigue and disease. So that's why a lot of people are wrecked when they awaken, because you've come from your head down into your body and you realise your body is wrecked. And it's even like that concept when a lot of people, when they stop working, you know, they have a holiday, so they have 2 weeks off and they get sick. Because what happens is your body has come out of flight or fight, and it's now in the rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system, right? And you're actually, you're sick then, because you've come out with the flight or fight stage, if that makes sense. So when we stop, we realise, I'm actually wrecked, I'm actually sick. And there's just so many people who I've talked to that's happened to. And they're recovering from decades of not being in their bodies, not resting. So I'm just going to share some of my own experience there with that. And I know a couple of years ago, I must share it again, I wrote a post on chronic fatigue and how it's been my greatest, best teacher. And it has been, and it continues to be. Because when you're tired, you cannot do anything that isn't in full alignment. It's a really good boundary. And it really helps you to dissolve the ego. Because the ego wants to do this and this and this and be successful and this and this and this. But when you're absolutely exhausted, you don't care about what your ego wants. You're like, I don't care if you want this and that's successful to you. I'm wrecked, like. So it's really, my ego has really took a seat, and I don't do anything now really that isn't in full alignment, because I don't have the energy to. So, and I would have shared this throughout different episodes, but here it is again anyways. I burnt out in 2018. Got, like, whatever this illness you get is just a manifestation of burnout. Really, I feel. I had glandular fever or something. And yeah, I burnt out for the first time. I don't know how I didn't burn out sooner when I look back, because I spent 30 plus years not in my body, in flight or fight mode. And it was a cranial sacral therapist that I went to in 2018, and she was like, I think she said it to me, I think she was like, you've literally been in flight or fight most of your life. And she described it to like this: it's like your body, like it's like a car, right? You were stuck in fourth gear continuously, and you couldn't come down the gears to third, to second, to first, to switch off the car. Like your body was never switched off, it was always switched on. Because I was in that different traumatic experience as a child. I mean, time in the womb, if you're born in a hospital, probably traumatic. Most hospital births are not non-traumatic in my experience. They fuck up the nervous system. I was just talking about that recently, even when I worked in the day job in Tempest Street Children's Hospital, and we were doing assessments on children who had, tried to suicide or something like that. And the first question during the assessment always was, how was the birth? How was the time? How was your pregnancy with this child? Because we, even as medical professionals, knew the time in the womb and the birth affected someone's mental health and their physical health. Anyway, so we all have some sort of trauma. That is just a fact. And trauma can push us out of our bodies and into our head. It can force us to disassociate from our bodies because the memory of the trauma is held in the body somewhere. So we disassociate from that pain and we go up into our head. And when we're disassociated from our body, we don't know when it's screaming out to us, I'm wrecked, slow down. And if we don't listen to it, we manifest illness and it will force us to slow down. If we don't take rest, we don't take holidays, our bodies will force us to listen. And that is what happened to me in 2018. And yeah, I obviously left the day job then a year later. And I moved to Donegal, and I knew I was absolutely exhausted from 30 plus years living in flight or fight. Like, I was the person who was working 5 days a week, volunteering in the evening, driving halfway across the country or the full way across the country and hiking mountains. I was literally never offline. I was never switched off. I was never able to relax or meditate before I woke up in 2018. Like, I was completely in that matrix of climbing my career, you know, busy. Success was this. Drinking, you know, I wasn't drinking that much in my early 30s, but I was in my 20s. It was just like traveling the world and completely disassociated from my body, completely. I mean, I really was lucky I didn't manifest a more serious illness, to be honest. And I'm just taking a breath even now and just making sure I'm down in my body. Just taking a breath, yeah. So when I moved to Donegal, I quit the day job. I knew I was going to need a couple of years where I just didn't do a whole lot of work and I just recuperated and rested and recovered. And when I reflect back on that time, that's 4 years ago, I'm still recovering 4 years later. And the reason for that is it's a process of coming down the gears of 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. I feel like now I'm currently in 1.5. It's still extremely difficult for me to completely switch off because of, as I said, 30 plus years in gear 4 or in flight or fight. And in hindsight, I can realise that even in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, I was still actually doing a lot because I was stuck in those gears and I just didn't know how to fully switch off. And it was my womb a couple of months ago that really started speaking to me. She was like, you need to fully come out of flight or fight mode now, like because your womb is been affected. So if you were like me, totally, like I was working in Dublin in a high position in a hospital, working full-time, busy. It's going to take way longer to recover and actually to learn what your baseline is. You know, it's like I thought in 2019, 2020, 21 I was really switching off, but I was still actually doing a lot. But it was a lot less than I had been done, so I had come a far way. But it seemed that there was still a long way to go. So, like, for example, I kind of replaced my work with spiritual practices, like travelling all over the Celtic Isles, doing pilgrimages, and yeah, like I was just busying myself with other things. And that comes from a place of not being good enough as you are. And I actually, now I haven't gone anywhere really in months and months, not to anything really, because I now know that like everything that I need is within me, and you go and you do things when there's actually the life force energy to do it. So I don't do anything anymore unless there is the life force energy there to do it. So it's been a journey of unraveling from flight or fight, from that wounded masculine within me, and learning like to be spiritual really is to be in our hearts, and to be in our hearts is to be in our bodies, and to be in our bodies is to like, we really need to look after it. We really need to look after it. And I think on Wednesday when I went to the priestess training, it was probably the most grounded I felt going to the training, because I actually was, as I said, I haven't been doing much, been really switched off. And when I was really grounded, I was able to be a vessel for the land, for the goddess, much better. Like I was a lot clearer of a vessel for the divine. And it made me realise that like, to be a priestess or to be a healer, I have to be in my body, and it has to be grounded, and it has to be healthy, because otherwise I can't actually channel. I can't be the vessel. I can't really help myself or others if I'm not looking after my temple, which is my body, or my body, which is my temple. And I actually feel like I could be here for hours now about this topic, but anyways, before I go on more rants, it's important to say as well that like, I can only share my experience. It's like, when it comes to spiritual awakening and fatigue or whatever it is we're recovering from or healing, all of our journeys are so unique to us. So just because I had a spiritual awakening and was exhausted doesn't mean somebody else will. And just because somebody else's energy levels are really high after a spiritual awakening doesn't mean I have to compare my energy to theirs. It's very important that we realise that we all have a very unique soul path and soul journey, that it's impossible for it to be the same as somebody else's. It's actually impossible, given the amount of individuality we have on our path, which is many lifetimes, many different relationships and experiences and childhood and births. It's impossible for us to compare. So all I can do is share my experience, and hopefully some of it resonates, but some of it mightn't. So when I look at my journey, I know I've spent many lifetimes not in my feminine, not in my body. So when I woke up, I knew I was recovering from what felt like eons of wounded masculine actions and energies. And I also was very aware that it was present in my lineage as well, where my recent ancestors didn't know how to rest or be really in their hearts either. And that was present through seeing that a lot of my family members died from heart attacks, so they weren't in their hearts or in their bodies. So it's we have to look at all these factors, like how have we lived our lives, what have other lifetimes been like, what's our lineage, what's happening in our lineage. So for me, I'm out of even my community or my sisters, my friends, I've experienced a massive amount of fatigue, given my path of being in the matrix, in the system, kind of been asleep for quite a long time. It's very different if you're kind of always awake. You're not going to be pushing against your body as much as I would have. So it's very unique. And sometimes it's been difficult for me to share my truth around it, because I felt nearly embarrassed about it. Of how, God, should I not have my energy back now? It's been years. And now I don't feel like that at all anymore, because I'm like, it's only been 4 years. It was 30 something years. out of my body, and it was actually many lifetimes and ancestral as well. So I feel like I'm really just at the start of my spiritual path and healing path and awakening and recovery, really still. And, you know, and I was talking to my teacher about this on Wednesday, that, you know, it's unusual. It's usually people are older when they experience a burnout. So it can feel a bit weird that I'm 35 and feeling like an 80-year-old woman might have more energy than me. And probably that 80-year-old woman would be in flight or fight too if she had more energy than me. But like, yeah, like that's the reality. Like seeing sometimes older people who have more energy than me because I'm recovering from burnout and they're not. Like, it can be a lot to deal with. But that's the ego anyways, comparing and judging. So, yeah, and this is what I was talking to Deirdre about my teacher was, you have to learn your new baseline or your new boundary. So like what you were once able to do, you're now not able to do because you've burnt out and you're in a recovery period. You're now out of flight or fight, you're in rest and digest and you're exhausted. So you have to kind of say no, you have to say goodbye to a lot of your old identities. Well, I have anyways. The person who was really sociable and really productive and so reliable and banging out things, helping so many people and burning myself out. Like, I had to say goodbye to that person. And that's when we work with our menstrual cycle as a woman, every month when I bleed, that was an opportunity to let die those parts of myself that were burning me out and no longer serving me. As we can also work with the wheel of the year and the seasons, you know, Samhain and the full moon and the new moon and all these different times of the year that we can help release all parts of ourselves as well, which has really helped me to come into more truth and alignment and deeper into my body. So yeah, we're saying goodbye to all parts of ourselves and we're realizing what we're actually now able for. And I realized this year with my womb, you know, speaking to me and awakening, was even things I was doing last year was me going against my body, and that I have to even be more strict on myself. Not strict, but just listen to my body. And I think I've probably shared it on here before. I definitely shared it on Instagram. I was at Loch Crew last year with a group of elders from Mexico and my own tribe, and I knew when I went to Loch Crew after Healing Spirit Music Festival that I was wrecked and I should have went home, but I didn't listen to my body and I went to Loch Crew because I was like, oh, the elders, and I don't want to miss out, and this will be an amazing opportunity. And the tent went on fire and my feet went on fire. I woke up on fire. I mean, if that wasn't a sign for spirit to slow down, like my feet literally got burnt. Like, you know, feet burnt off her, literally, from all these pilgrimages and moving around and thinking that I needed something outside of myself. And as I said, it's great to go to these things if the life force energy is actually there, but it wasn't. Like, I was about to bleed and it just wasn't, the energy wasn't there. And I remember saying to my friends, you know what, I don't think I have the energy. And I think, you know, one of them said, oh, it'd be great to have you there. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, I will. And it's, of course, that's what your friends will always say to you, like, we'd love to have you there. But when you're recovering from chronic fatigue, you really need to be boundaried. Like, I just wasn't boundaried enough. I'd be like, yeah, okay. I'd just go with the flow. Like, I wasn't able to really say no. Oh my God. I just have such, compassion for that part of myself, because now I've like no problem, you know. And of course, you know, there is things that we will have to say, not that we have to say yes to, but like that we really want to say yes to, and we'll rest up beforehand so we know we'll have the energy to go. You know, there is things, but for me, it's about allowing myself a long period of time where there just isn't anything on. And that's what this year has been about for me. And I think it was at my birthday, in Wicklow where I said, no, it was the spring equinox where I was like, I need to not have to go anywhere this year. I knew the path I needed this year. And I think when we look at the weather, it's been like stormy and windy and raining for much of the year. And I think that was the goddess herself saying, just stop, root in your own homes and go within and look for the Holy Grail within, which is within us. It's not something we have to go seeking. It's the Holy Grail is within, and the Holy Grail is connected to that divine Christ consciousness energy, that womb that we all come from, that darkness where our life is created, is within us all, men and women. So I think I shared it recently online as well, that like I used to pray that I would return to full health and vitality, but that kind of energy that I was hoping to return to doesn't even exist for a woman, I don't believe, where we do every day of the month, even when we're bleeding, and we're constantly doing, like, I was praying for something that doesn't even exist within me. And now I do pray that my energy continues to come back and recover from burnout, but I also realise that that looks differently than how I thought it did, which is being a woman who bleeds means that there's times where I do have to rest deeply, and I don't put anything in my diary, you know, and especially during winter now, like I'm in bed by 8 or 9 o'clock and resting a bit more than usual. And yeah, so like figuring out what is full health and vitality as a woman or a man, like what does that actually look like? Because for none of us does it mean that we're productive and doing 24/7. Like that's a wounded way of being, I feel. So yeah, I mean, look, I am continuously week by week learning how to listen to my body. I am still seeing how I'm disassociating from my body when I'm doing. I find it still very hard to be really present in my body when I have a lot of things to do. I seem to jump out of my body. And that's because I'm still moving down the gears. It could take me 2 or 3 hours to just come into a baseline of rest and digest. So I like to go up in the morning, have a shower, have a bath, meditate, journal, to actually feel like my body isn't in flight or fight. So I have a lot of work to do, and for a lot of people, you know, they haven't had such an extreme burnout for them to be that their nervous system be that whacked. But there is a lot of people whose nervous system is also that whacked, and for me it's requiring a lot of devotion and dedication to get my body back to rest and digest. And yeah, I can't wait for the day where I'm actually able to just switch off easily. You know, like you just switch off the car. For me, it takes a lot of work to try and switch myself off, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I've just seen a hawk fly near the house there, and there's been so many hawks around this land for the last couple of months. I feel like the hawk medicine for me is to watch everything, to not miss anything that I'm doing that is dysregulating my nervous system. And I think there was another thing going viral on Instagram. Real success is a regulated and healthy nervous system, and that's exactly what I'm aiming for now. So yeah, I mean, for me, being online completely dysregulates my nervous system and makes me go from gear 1 back to gear 4, WhatsApp, group messages. I have to be very disciplined with all these things. Like, if you're like me, recovering from burnout, phone, technology, devices really dysregulate the nervous system. So I've no TV, obviously. Only use my laptop when I really need to. Just read at night. Don't go on my phone in the evenings. And, you know, I had a Zoom call with my sisters the other night, which was beautiful. But I was on my laptop till 10 o'clock and I was absolutely dysregulated for nearly 24 hours. Like, now I've become so sensitive to technology, or been up late. You know, I need to have a very large window in the evenings to wind down. You know, and it's got to do with my birth chart and my makeup as well. You know, it's not just burnout, it's who I am. I'm a Taurus sun, rising Pisces, Cancer moon, extremely sensitive. As a Taurus, you really absorb the energies around you. So that can, if you are around a lot of energies, it can lead to a lot of dysregulation in the nervous system. So for me, being in large crowds in town does nothing good for my nervous system. For some people, going to town, no problem. So it's about knowing your birth chart, your astrology, and a bit more about yourself as well, knowing what's good for you and what isn't. And you know, growing up, I was always walking on eggshells with my family members. So you're on, if that was you as well, you know, if you grew up in any sort of abusive, emotional, physically abusive environment, your nervous system has been whacked your whole life, because you've learned to, your environment wasn't safe. So you've learned that. That's why a lot of us end up in flight or fight, because you're you know, growing up, you mightn't have felt safe, or your birth, as I said, and you're in this state of constantly walking on eggshells. You know, like if a window shut, like a door slammed shut with the wind gesture, I automatically jump, because I'm in that kind of state of fear that something, my environment isn't safe. So I constantly working on that. This environment is safe, and yeah, it's a lot of meditation and breath work and all these spiritual practices that we all know very well, but implementing them regularly. Or working with a somatic therapist. That's something I'm going to start doing as well. Somatic work, which is, you know, regulating the nervous system. Saying no. They're just some of the things that have helped me, and I think the main kind of aspects of it are the biggest difficulty, I suppose, has been knowing that I am enough, I am enough regardless of how much I get done in a day, because some days I can't do anything productive because I'm exhausted. And how I will serve in other ways. So you're serving, like, I'm here to serve the divine and serve myself. So that could be through prayer, meditation. You know, when you think about it, like nuns, there's a sect of nuns, and all their whole mission work is to just praise Christ. You know, so if we get up and we pray and we give thanks to the source energy, the divine, and we pray for humanity, peace and harmony, and we do our inner mission, that isn't more than enough. Like, my therapist always reminds me of that, like, the inner work of healing is the work, like that is the main work. And when I'm healing my nervous system, I'm doing the inner work, I'm doing the inner mission. And to fulfill the outer mission, which is to help humanity at this time of awakening, I can't do the outer mission without tending to the inner mission. Because then you're not really helping people, you are, and I'm just seeing the hawk fly towards me again. And that's what he's showing me, is like, you have to see all parts of yourself, tend to all parts of yourself to really heal. Because if not, you're healing people from a wounded place, like you're helping people from a wounded place. You know, And fatigue or tiredness isn't a bad thing. It's an amazing, beautiful teacher that will teach you so much about the divine feminine of rest. Will teach you about how to really listen to your body, your temple, how to really be in your heart. It will, as I said, really force you to let your ego take a seat and see yourself as the divine being that you are, irrelevant of what you do in the world. And the reality is, as a light worker, you are a light worker if you're here in this space. Just by being you, so just bringing your light consciousness to the planet, you're helping the planet. Just by being you, without doing anything. And actually, the more, when I meditate, I really can feel my light frequency and my heart energy explode. And that ripples out into the earth and into the people just by me simply being in my heart and praying and meditating from that space. So sometimes that's actually the most powerful thing we can do. We don't need to be off running circles or doing X, Y, and Z. And no, there is a time and a place for that when the life force energy is there. But knowing what season of your life you are in. Like I am without a doubt in the winter season of my life, and I have been for about 4 years. And that's okay. And it's actually not just okay, it's beautiful and it's needed. And, just on that, it's like I have found it impossible to find a reference point for where I'm at on my path. Like I couldn't read a book where someone was saying it will take you 4 or 5 years or 6 years or a decade to recover from burnout, because no one else has the journey I've had. So I was kept looking for an oracle deck or a book that would say it's okay that you're still resting, it's okay that you're still recovering, but I never found it. I had to find that validation and peace within that this is okay and this is vital and this is needed. So yeah, I'm just going to tune in to see if there's anything else on that. I'm just noticing that my body is really hungry and I really need to go and make some lunch, and I really need to practice what I preach now and tend to my body. Lol. But yeah, I really hope some of this resonated. Yeah, and I suppose what I really wanted to get across is that fatigue and tiredness isn't a bad thing. It's something to really stop and embrace and hear its medicine, hear its teachings, hear its wisdom. And it's becoming really like a warrior and saying no to things that you just don't have the energy to do or aren't coming from. When you say yes to something, is it really coming from the right place? You know, even spiritual practices like in pilgrimages, I actually had to say no to everything. You know, sometimes like a 20-minute round trip to the beach is too much. And it's okay in winter, we're meant to be resting and within our internal temple and within our homes. You know, sometimes that's honestly, sometimes that's even too much. And I've really had to pull myself back, been like, do I need to go to the beach? Is that coming from a place of I actually have the energy to go, or I think I should go and get into the waters and that'll make me better? Or can I find that I don't have to go anywhere? You don't have to go to a well or a beach. Sometimes you just need to be within yourself. You know, I actually burnt myself out going to different sacred places and nature places. I must be with the trees, I must be with the waters, I must be with the wells. No, you don't. No, I don't. Everything you need is within you. You know, you are the sacred site. You are the sacred waters. You are the holy well. And yeah, I think we need to make it normal to have, for us all, to have proper boundaries. You know, people say to me, I think it's great that you can just go off your phone, and I think we all should be able to give ourselves permission to do that if that's what we feel our body needs. You know, I don't, just because someone rings me doesn't mean I answer or ring them back. Like, it's this constant, instant availability we're meant to have to the outer world. No. I'll get back when I actually have the energy to. I think these phones, to me, like, I'm an ancient soul. I'm like, phones, I don't know, like, I know I'm recording on a phone, you're listening on a phone, but this instant availability we're meant to have, I say no to all that. I say no to all this informal contact with people we might never meet. I mean, we can utilise it when we have proper boundaries with it and to our benefit, but why on WhatsApp can you tell if someone's already read it or not? Like, no, it's not right. Like, it's just not right. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm just sending you all blessings, reminding yourself that you're doing absolutely amazing at this time, remembering and reclaiming, healing, and to remember the light being that you are, especially as we approach the solstice. So lots of love, Grá agus Bannacht until we chat again. Grá Mòr, slán go fóill.